Good morning, dear viewers. This is the 18th of March, 2023, and I've already made another video on a shopping mall area here in the capital city of Minsk, and it's that shopping mall is in the area where I live, but I'm actually right at the area I live right now. And if you can, well, let me walk a little bit closer over here. And you see, it'll be the apartment building. Okay, now you can probably see it. Our apartment is in the middle, so it's not in the middle of what you're looking at. This is the side of the apartment building. And this was originally built in, I think, 1934. It was in the Stalin area. So your apartment is called a Stalinka because it was built in that time. And that's the most sought after apartments normally in Belarus, probably in Russia as well, because during the time of Stalin, everything was built much better, or maybe even pre-Stalin. But a lot of the most beautiful buildings and all that in these Soviet countries are built during the Stalin era. But anyway, here I'm going off on something. What I really want to talk about, I'm addressing the people of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the country that I left to come here. And you know, I like this country, but you know, it's very difficult to change from one country to the other after you've lived in some place for like 20 years. I think I lived 18 years in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. And the government was coming up with what has now been decided in the last days as a very unconstitutional measure. What they were doing is firing people for not, you know, putting this medication in your arm for this created pandemic. Some call it, and even in documentaries, a plandemic. And there's a lot of evidence to prove that is actually been planned, and the whole thing. As a matter of fact, it's pretty obvious because they had Event 201 where they, you'd have to look that up, and I think you can still find that on YouTube, where it was like a month or two before the virus came out, and they were planning for when that virus would come out. And what it was is they were going through like news events and people saying what would happen and what will be the results, and you know, these injections into people's arms. I believe it was a high court judge, of course, deemed it was unconstitutional, of course, which it was. 2 Seventh-day Adventist virologists in California, and they just reported what the truth was. And of course, the establishment, including YouTube, they couldn't handle that, so they took them down. They had, like I said, 1 million views in less than a day, and you know, that got some attention. And I don't know if there's any evidence that says that the Chinese government was ever involved, you know, in causing any part of this. And it's all these the evidence leads to the military and Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that sort of thing. But anyway, the first thing that I noticed that was breaking about that this was never as serious is from Seventh-day Adventist doctors in California. They put up a video saying all the evidence from the people that are getting affected by this is there's very, very little deaths. And you know, at the very beginning, when the virus was supposed to be at its worst, very, very little deaths. And it was mostly of certain people, older people, elderly, and overweight people and things like that. So, and they put that out very early. You have to thank the Seventh-day Adventists a lot for this too. So, for exposing a lot of this virus fake news. So the opposition in Saint Vincent, at the very beginning, you know, they wanted everybody to get locked down. So, you know, they weren't perfect there. I think they realized at some point in time afterwards that's not a very good move, so they stopped talking about it. You know, but also at the very beginning, this seems like the ULP, they had most things right. But that was before the medications came out, the medical intervention. And then, of course, they went 180 degrees on the other side, and they probably would have wanted everybody locked down. You know, but they didn't start with that at the beginning. I think the reason why they maybe didn't, because they knew that would implode the economy over there in Saint Vincent. So that didn't happen that way. And yeah, but you also have to wonder if, you know, forcing this medical intervention onto the people, you know, trying to get 90% of the people, you know, forced vaccinated. which they don't call it. Oh, no, we're not forcing anybody. You just lose your job. We just take the food out of your mouth if you don't get vaccinated. But we don't use a gun. We're not going to force you. you know? Yeah. When you're stuck on a little island, maybe you can't travel. But what happened, obviously, nobody could foresee that Omicron would come and save humanity. By the time I had already left, that's when Omicron came. And that virtually killed practically zero people on Earth when they started actually telling the truth, even though the lies were all coming out saying, oh, everybody's dying from Omicron. Highly communicative, but not even deadly at all, not even for older people. So that was actually, you could say that's God's intervention. So God saved everybody with Omicron. And of course Bill Gates was highly perturbed, and he even said that he was ticked off, and that's of course when he started selling off all of his stock and everything, and all of his position in these medical instruments, I guess you could say, and his laboratories all over. But then they worked on another one. What was it? They crossed Omicron with the earlier virus, which was more deadly. So they're trying to make a highly contagious, more deadly form of it. And that was done at Boston University or whatever like that. But, you have to stop and look at the truth in spite of all of the true news and all of the facts and everything. It's all been suppressed by governments, the media, including the social media, and then there's not that many of us, that was actually right from the beginning, and we knew all of this stuff, because, you got to follow real experts, and those experts, they didn't have any stake in this at all. They weren't going to win any money. And you talk about, like, say, Anthony Fauci, who made lots of money, they get lots of prestigious positions and power, and there's so many people like that. So they had something to win, and the people they were speaking against it didn't have anything to win, unless they went for it, which they didn't. So anyway, that's all I have to say at this moment. And since this is going to be on YouTube, and it's too difficult to put things on Rumble for some odd reason, it takes many hours, and it doesn't work very well for me to put it up. And on Rumble, things are a little bit better in that way in YouTube, even though you don't have a freedom of speech really. If the executives of YouTube don't agree with something, they either shadow ban you, or they do any sort of thing possible, maybe even suspend you, which has happened to me already. And when you're talking about subjects they don't like to hear about, when you're telling the truth. And it doesn't matter how much evidence you have, or how much evidence has been presented, and how many of the best experts on earth will tell you some certain information. As a matter of fact, some of the biggest experts, for somebody that created the technology for these medications that go into your arm, for this sickness that was going around, which they have the name 2019 on it or something, and it's this so-called virus. The guy that created the technology for making the medication, he's even been banned, and he's telling people about that medication. And the greatest heart expert on the planet, and some people say the best heart expert that's ever lived in history, he's been banned because he's warning people about this. But anyway, mostly what I'm making this video for is to congratulate Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and for it's a victory here. And a lot of people lost their jobs in a lot of fields, medical and teachers and whatnot. And the reason why I left Saint Vincent is because the Prime Minister, of course, was threatening everybody and saying he's going to get 90% of the country vaccinated. They were already talking about not possibly in the future, where you can't even go into a grocery store to buy anything unless you've had this medication in your arm. And I hope I didn't say the wrong word here a little bit ago. I don't want to get this might not last on YouTube anyway. It might have as much chance of staying up as a fart in a hurricane, talking about this sort of subject. Some of the people that are well established on YouTube, they can get away with saying this stuff. and of course they've been getting censored and all that as well, but they didn't ban them because I guess YouTube makes a lot of money from them too when you have 50,000 viewers or whatever. But as I say, I had to get out of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, for that because my family has a history of having bad reactions to blood clots, things that cause blood clots. The bad reaction is death. So many people in my family have died through blood clots, and when some certain medication is known to be causing blood clots to a lot of people, it just depends on your genetic makeup, I would think it'd be pretty stupid for me to go and stick this thing in my arm. And I'm glad I didn't do it anyway because there's way too much evidence. And then you have Bill Gates that came out and said, well, we didn't know that these things didn't work there very well. And how, from the beginning, from all this evidence, we didn't know that this virus was not very serious anyway, and it only affected, the elderly people and some sick people and all that sort of stuff. And practically everybody else, it didn't harm them at all. And then, of course, if you look at children below the age, I think it was 26 years old, virtually zero, and yet they closed the schools in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines for a long time, and other places. And then you see all these rich and the famous people like Boris Johnson, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, even Fauci himself, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and they're all partying without masks, without social distancing, having a great old time. The only ones wearing masks are their servants, the brown-skinned servants, either dark skin or Hispanic or whatever. And all of them, the rich and the elites and the super super privileged people, they don't have to wear masks and nothing like that. And and then you look at who was it? Andrew Tate, the most viewed person on YouTube until they sort of banned him. They tried to ban him, and they can't ban him. Everybody's still putting things up from him. And but anyway, what did he say? When he was traveling around, going like just first class because he's a rich guy. He was a kickboxer, by the way, and he made a lot of money that way, and he's got a lot of other investments. And of course, he was from the UK and I think he's part American and UK, both, dual citizenship, I believe. But he moved to Romania, and thinking he's going to be a lot more free and a lot safer there. And of course, that's a puppet state. And somebody encouraged the government there to lock the guy up. So he's still locked up to this day. But anyway, what he was saying is he stopped going first class and he bought his own airplane because he's tired of all these mandates, wearing masks and social distancing and all this other kind of crap. And he says amongst the rich people, they don't have any of these mandates. You don't have to wear a mask. There is no social distancing. There is no, everybody gets to move around freely. But it's only for us little insignificant people that they had all these mandates for. So, that you get it. So you hear that from a rich person. And then but anyway, mostly here I'm going off on tangents, and I think it was Jomo Thomas that led this charge against this. He has been right about everything about this virus, regardless of what you might think of Jomo Thomas. I don't, Jomo Thomas, a lot of people are trying to say, oh, he's a racist and all this sort, but he's pro-black, but that doesn't mean he's anti-white. I've been noticing, so he probably has to do a little bit better PR work for himself, I think, but he's not as bad as everybody says he is in those ways. And actually, I'm starting to have a lot more respect for him, and especially when he knows about what was going on in this pandemic. But anyway, I'll just cut this short. I have a telephone call coming in here now. Well, hello again, people of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. I thought since I'm making a video for you, I may as well show, and I have a little bit of time, I thought I might show you a little bit about Minsk here. So this is back behind me now. I guess this is like what you'd call the White House for Minsk. That's where the president does his work. It's not where the president lives, actually, so I don't know. The president of the United States, I guess, lives in the White House and conducts business there, but in this country, the president doesn't live here, but I guess that's his main building where he works. So, and I do not know what this building is. Some sort of I suppose it's Stalinist, maybe from the Stalinist times. A lot of these buildings in this area are from the Stalinist times because you can tell because they're well built and quality and whatnot. There's another building over there. I didn't mention in the other segment that about this plandemic. If you remember at the beginning, I guess it was the NDP saying that everybody should be locked up, which turned out to be really silly. It makes you wonder that China had kept their lockup policy for so long, and now they, of course, recently ended it, when everybody else knew a long time ago that it was doing no good whatsoever. The first time in history that you lock people up that are healthy from a pandemic or whatever. And this country where I'm in right now, Belarus, nobody was ever locked up. There was very little mandates, and then they ended them all, like wearing masks and stuff. They ended that much quicker. I don't know, there might have been some social distancing, might have been, but there were never any lockdowns. All the clubs and everything were open, and people not wearing masks or anything the entire time. But I guess they made it against the law to force people to wear masks. So it's a lot different socially than Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. They have a lot more concern about the people over here and than they do in Saint Vincent, I hate to say. I like the foreign policy of the government of Saint Vincent. There's a lot of good things in that, but a lot of people might disagree with me. But economics is not good at all. This country used to be one of the heavily indebted countries in the world, and of course that all changed. And in recent years, of course, it's got one of the best budgets in the world now. It's one of 10 countries that I think, what was it? As far as deficit, they don't have deficit spending, really. They're barely in the plus, and there's only 10 countries in the world that are like that. I think the worst one is the United States. I don't know, maybe it's Japan or Jamaica or something like that. Some of these heavily indebted countries that just keep going into debt and borrowing money. And St. Vincent, I think, is in the top 20, unfortunately. This country used to be up in there, and now in the past years, it's changed drastically, and so. And of course, you can come to this country from St. Vincent with no visa. So it's visa-free travel to Belarus for Vincentian citizens. So this is a park by that one building. I don't really know what the heck this is all about. Anyway, just gonna put this into that video. Oh, here's a bus that can go by gas or electricity. If you saw that, made right by where I live. Anyway, that's just to add to this. There's a lot to see here. It's a huge city. It's 3 million people. I think that's a population of Trinidad, just of this city. So anyway, that's just to add to that video I was talking about. Feel free to put this on Facebook, and send this to your friends, this video, because again, it's just congratulations for the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and live long and prosper, I guess I should say. Thanks.